twists are a great core exercise, but quite tricky to get right. So today I'm going over all the key points you need to know when it comes to technique. First of all, we're going to start with a nice wide base, so feet around shoulder width apart. We're going to put a little bend in the knees. That's quite important. We don't want to be locked out in the legs because then it's awkward to twist whilst keeping your balance. So you want some nice soft knees. Allow that little bend to happen first of all. Now before we use the cable machine, I want you to think about your center point that runs down the whole body. So if this is my center line in the middle here, my work is going to happen around that line. So when performing that core twist, we want to keep the center point in the same place. We're going to do that by keeping the hips and the head in the fixed position. So line yourself up sideways on from the cable handle, and we're going to focus on keeping the hips facing directly forwards as well as your head facing directly forwards. Now the head can twist as much as you want, but I find it helps for you to focus forwards in order to keep the rest of the body facing forwards. But more importantly is keeping those hips facing forwards. So what can happen is we can lose the hips twisting one way and twisting the other, similar to a golf swing, whereas the emphasis with a core twist is all about the core. So we want to dissociate the legs from the upper body, therefore we can make sure the whole twisting exercise comes from the core and not the hips and the legs. So you can see here I've got my hips facing forward, I'm facing forward, and my arms are twisting across, and there's a good core twist coming from the core itself. The core's having to do a lot of work here, whereas if I was kind of using the legs, the core can almost do nothing because I'm using my hips to compensate for the movement. Because that part can be quite tricky, you may want to start on a light weight, build yourself up and build that technique up where you feel comfortable twisting with the core alone compared to with the hips, and then you can slowly build up weight. Now we've made sure that the hips aren't going to take away from the core twist, we also need to make sure that the arms aren't going to take away from the core twist as well. And what I mean by that is sometimes the arms can kind of go for a push-pull exercise instead of allowing the core to do anything, or even if we are going for that kind of arcing motion, the arms can still do too much by either using momentum with a big start pull, and they can start to bend and come closer to that center point we were talking about earlier, which is going to take away from the core. We want the hands to stay as equal distance as possible away from that center point for the whole movement, all the way to this side and all the way back. So the best way to do this is start with a slight bend in both arms, so your arms aren't dead locked out, and then we're going to try and rotate them out in front of you whilst keeping that slight bend in them and all the way around to the other side. Now this arm may adjust slightly, but generally the handle itself is staying an equal distance from my center point the whole way around throughout the movement. Now that is a lot easier said than done, it takes a lot of practice. So what I do with clients is get them to hold a light wall ball between their arms. So you can see here this mimics that kind of slight bend in the arms can't be straight now, and they can meet in the end so they can still hold that handle, and we're going to try and mimic that core twist whilst keeping this ball in position, which therefore prevents any bending of the arms getting close to that center point. So exactly the same, once you've got the wall ball in a comfortable position, grab the handle, start over one side, bring it all the way across and back, and you can see those arms can't bend when using this wall ball, and it mimics that position we're looking for where the arms kind of stay in that same position like I showed you before. One final tip I can give you for the core twist, which I've done poorly in this video because I wanted a good camera angle, is where you stand in position to the cable machine. So I'm right up against this wall and so is the cable machine, but really you want the handle to be slightly out in front of you. So if I change my angle quickly here, you can see I'm starting with the cable machine slightly out in front. That allows me to, when I'm round the other side, not get clotheslined by the cable here.